buy yourself a gun. What? Gun. What? Like a handgun. For personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun?
We're all set to riot. My gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. My gun. They'll burn you out like you Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. 10-40 cops in riot gear. Gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Before you wish you bought a gun. Back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Back up. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Back up. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Before you wish you bought a gun. Back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta
It is Tuesday. We are live. This is PrimerTime on UCY.tv. My name is Michael, and I'm not pleased with the political process.
My name is Nicholas, and I believe that the Second Amendment has lost one of its staunchest supporters this week.
Yeah, Nick, it's kind of like a somewhat perilous time for firearms owners again, and the Second Amendment in the United States. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia passed away this week at a ranch, and he was 79 years old. He'd been on the Supreme Court for over 20 years, I believe. He was
About
appointed
30
by
years.
Reagan.
Yeah, almost 30 years.
Right. That's right. He was appointed by Ronald Reagan in, I can't remember what year it was. And he pretty much was one of the staunchest defenders of the Second Amendment that we've had, well, since like Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
And
it's
I don't necessarily agree with on a lot of his political leanings, but when it comes to his view on gun control and the Constitution, he was pretty strict. And yeah, it's kind of a loss and kind of is going to imperil firearms rights for a ways to go. And
I
don't
think that,
start extrapolating out to when Hillary is selected and installed.
Yeah, I think
because
that
then it gets ugly.
Even more than putting Second Amendment in peril, I think what this does is you've got the Second Amendment been the one, basically the one and only amendment that keeps getting brought back up to the court. Administration after administration, and the court had previously affirmed that the Second Amendment, as it was written, stands. And the thing that I don't get is that, these challenges keep coming, and it's like the people that bring the suits before the Supreme Court listen to the public opinion, and they listen to the polls, and they try and see which way, public opinion is leaning, hoping that bringing those suits to the court will force the justice's hands. And I think that's where, the proponents of the Second Amendment and people that support the shooting sports and support public ownership of firearms really have lost an advocate. I think that when it comes to nominating justices for the Supreme Court as a lifelong nomination, there's not a whole lot in terms of vetting that goes on anymore. I mean, you look at the last couple of justices that were appointed by conservatives, and the justices have a sketchy, if not almost liberal, record. A lot of folks think John Roberts kind of was a wolf in sheep's clothing in terms of conservative causes. Definitely George Herbert Walker Bush did the same thing. I think that the good thing is that the Republican-held Congress is not going to allow a lame duck nomination to go through.
No, and this brings up a really kind of scary thought that, well, I guess in my view, it's a foregone conclusion that Hillary is going to be the next president. I don't think there's any way around that. And call me crazy or whatever, but I think that's that's already been written in stone. Whether or not they block a lame duck administration from appointing a Supreme Court justice, we now face the possibility of a Hillary administration placing 4 Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think is not talked about. You've got some justices that are getting up there in age. If anybody, I think a lot of people were not aware that Justice Scalia was in declining health. A lot of folks don't know that the Supreme Court, the justices don't have to release health reports like is typical for presidents that release their annual physicals or health checkups. The members of the Supreme Court don't do that. Apparently, Justice Scalia was too much in declining health or too frail to undergo shoulder surgery, and they decided that he would be best served by some kind of physical therapy instead of doing a surgery. And speaking as a guy who's had multiple shoulder surgeries, that's not real invasive, but
no, it's actually really not. It's not something that it should impact someone's further livelihood.
right, and
the goal of the surgery is to improve your life. A shoulder surgery shouldn't be something that provides you to be in declining health after the
right, and that leads me to believe that he had some pretty bad circulatory issues.
Which also is these are very big facts, but I think there's been a lot of conspiracy theory, and I'm not denigrating the conspiracy theory, but I mean, almost immediately I heard he was murdered and this kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what, there are some things about this that stinks, right? Number one, the coroner pronounced him dead over the phone, which apparently is legal in the state of Texas. I did not know that.
Well,
I don't know if that'll
Texas
ever come
is a big state.
Yeah, like because we don't got roads and helicopters and nothing like that.
No. And here's the thing, because nobody knows for sure if what was on the first page, front, the headline of Drudge was accurate when Drudge said he was found dead with a pillow over his head. And I actually read that story, and nowhere in the story did it say the words "found dead with pillow over his head," and there was quite a bit of sensationalism there.
There was, and well, you combine that with the fact that the ranch he was found on was owned by John Poindexter, who I guess there's 2 different John Poindexters. I don't know if this is the John Poindexter of CIA Iran-Contra fame. He was a naval admiral, or this is a different John Poindexter who's apparently a great big Obama supporter. I don't know if it's one and the same, but if it is CIA Iran-Contra John Poindexter, it's kind of suspicious. You start adding all these things up, but then was an old dude. I think he was kind of a smoker, and I don't think
he didn't exactly lead what would appear to be a very active lifestyle.
He wasn't a jump rope fan.
No. He's a bigger boy, and some of us bigger boys have problems with blood pressure and or cholesterol. And I think that in due time that stuff will come out. But like I said, trying to bring us back to the original point, I think that with the court now sitting at 8 justices, 3 of which I think you can consider very safe conservative votes. He really was the linchpin. He was the key vote on quite a few cases that were brought before the court. And not only that, he was very quick to write an opinion, whether in support of a case or in dissent, and quite often his
spoke opinion on the Heller case.
Yeah,
his opinion on the Heller case was very eloquent and really put some teeth into that decision.
Yeah, and not only that, like I said, I think that when he issued an opinion, he spoke as he was speaking to the common man, and he spoke in defense of the common man in a lot of his opinions.
But yeah, so I don't know. Like I've really tried to avoid like mainstream media coverage of this because I find the well, honestly, the anti-gun rhetoric started immediately. It was almost like they were salivating over
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah, certainly. And you know, and I think that's one of those things that when you take a look into it, the anti-gunners or the people who did not agree with his stance on gun control. You talk about not kicking a guy when he's down or not speaking ill of the dead. You know the level of vitriol that came out. As soon as it was learned that he was passed away. Wow. God only knows if there's somebody that's going to issue a judgment when you pass away. But some of the things that I saw people with obviously left leaning, tendencies.
Yeah, and I'd like
It was
to talk
gross.
about that for a moment. I specifically went to some what would be left wing websites just to see what they were saying about this in regards to the Second Amendment because I noticed the anti-gun spin coming rather early, and so I went and I checked that out. And one of the websites, the Daily Cause, which is not a friend of the Second Amendment by any means, um, they actually had mentioned Dianne Feinstein as a possible candidate for the Supreme Court.
Holy hell! Whoa!
Yeah.
I don't think we can take another Shebrew on the court.
Nick, I'm telling you that would just, I mean, you put that together with, Nugent's statement last week, which still is causing a bunch of ire and, has resulted in calls for his removal from the NRA board of directors.
But I did like the NRA board of directors' response to those calls, and that was any individual member of our board does not speak for us.
I think that's accurate. But the calls have come out for his removal from the board, and really, there's been a whole lot of name calling and accusations that no refutation of his facts.
Yeah,
And
and here's
kind
the
of
thing.
compile that with Zuckerberg. Nick, I dropped you a link to that story, but it turns out that Mark Zuckerberg has 16 armed security guards, and Mark Zuckerberg, owner of Facebook, just recently turned off all the gun pages on Facebook, all the gun trading pages and the gun talk pages and the buy and sell pages and all that. There's no more firearms related content on it.
Like I said, don't sell guns. Sell long range drills. He hasn't shut down the tool industry yet, so.
I'll tell you something I have seen that I went to a friend's house and actually checked this out, but somebody was putting he put on what does somebody think about this? Go ahead and PM me at 6:25 and then his city time. And somebody said, well, like, does your city have its own time zone? And why at 6:25 when this was, like at 11 o'clock in the morning or something when it came out? And well, let's use our brains here. 6:25 was the price of the Beretta 92 that he wished to discuss, and the time zone for his city is where he lives. So PM him to discuss that. So I think that's how people are getting around that. But I don't feel that it could be far away before Facebook has some sort of automated algorithm, robot, cyborg, human GMO concept thing that totally trolls it and looks for keywords and pictures of firearms and yanks it. So
yeah, and the funny thing is too is that as we've talked about, I'm experiencing in my area a decline of, good ads for firearms for sale, whether they're used or new. Typically, the used market is what I look at because what I'm reduced to looking at in my area is we have the arms list, and then we also have our state gun trader. Like I said, I haven't seen any movement up or down. It's the same ads time and time and time again. So I started checking Craigslist again, and in a town about an hour and a half south of me, they've got their own local Craigslist, and somebody was trying to go ahead and sell a Savage Hog Hunter that was outfitted with a Leupold scope, and two or three ads above that is some self-righteous prick going on there and saying, "Oh, don't you respect the rules? Craigslist is not a forum to sell guns." And the way I look at it is if you got enough free time to be monitoring Craigslist, number one, you should be a member of a law enforcement agency, and or two, you should shoot yourself. Because if you got a police Craigslist and you don't work for Craig Newmark, you're just being a self-righteous prick.
Well, it just goes to show that there's a certain segment of the population out there that will violate what they claim to stand against to oppress what they don't like. I mean, there's many people out there who claim to be anti-gun that claim that they would gladly pick up a firearm and become trained, and just so they could take guns away from everybody else, and then they'd happily give up their gun after that. And train real hard, motherfucker. Pack a lunch and bring some friends, because that's going to take some work. I mean, that's not how I see it at all. And I mean, I'm really kind of like concerned about the anti-gun rhetoric that's been coming around, and honestly, the brutal, in-your-face double standard.
Well, let's talk about that, because we had a school shooting, as it was initially reported, in Phoenix this week. And, preliminary information comes out and, oh no, school's on lockdown. Parents can't get in touch with their kids. This is horrible. Yet another school shooting that turned out to be absolutely nothing they were reporting it as.
Right. And the initial reports out of it said, six dead, and
Yeah, Michael, we're losing you for a second. So
multiple shooters on the loose, of course, and I was surprised that they didn't throw in AR-15 or Bushmaster. I'm surprised they didn't throw in Bushmasters, into the litany of verdicts they were throwing around. And yeah, what did it turn out to be? It turned out to be some sort of like lover's quarrel, murder suicide kind of a thing. That was just a convenient place for it to happen. It would have happened off school grounds. It would have happened, somewhere else.
Yeah, and it sounds like it was more of a, instead of just like a murder-suicide pact, it sounds like there was a breakup of a young teenage relationship that one of the members was not ready to end.
And that happens in life in other ways. I mean, there's plenty of bludgeonings, there's plenty of stabbings, there's plenty of drownings, there's plenty of just plain old beatings that take a life, and yet we choose to focus, or not we, but the media chooses to focus on the firearm, because it's totally worse to kill with a firearm. It's like a ball being hammered or something like that.
So in addition to that, the news media has largely been silent on the recent rash of targeted killings of police officers. And we tend to have our own opinions one way or the other about good cops and bad cops.
I'll tell you what, that's very interesting that you bring that up, and I totally wasn't going to bring that up, but there's a lot of hype that comes around out of that. In the Houston area, there was a sheriff, I don't know if you remember, it made national news. It was really great big news. His name was Darren Goforth, and he got shot back of the head, in the back a couple times. He was getting fuel for his vehicle. He was in uniform, and blah, blah, blah. It was a tragedy, and this is an outrage because it's the result of this anti-cop culture, and exactly what you're saying right there. But as this goes on further down the road, it turns out that this cop was cheating on his wife. He had 3 kids. The woman who he was cheating with was he had just left her residence or something, and or had just left an encounter with her, and it gets really, really greasy from there, and I mean extra greasy, because as you and I can both attest, having lived in the United States for the majority of our lives, it's very rare for police officers to get fired. Did you say that that's accurate?
I mean, without cause.
Yeah, without cause, but I mean, it's usually something fairly major that they've done that would cause them to get fired. Like, let's say some sort of like videotape shooting or something like that. That after all kinds of outrage and like 4 city riots and thousands and millions of dollars in court cases, these guys get fired. This is completely different, and there's been 3 sheriffs fired over this. Apparently they've all slept with this woman who is the witness to this murder, and they've also conspired to hide her from the investigation, as in she wasn't there. She's the witness to this whole thing and an eyewitness, and they've hidden her. And I'm telling you, you fire 3 cops for getting laid. I mean, even outside of the jurisdiction, there's more to this than this cop just got murdered. To me, it sounds like the cop got rubbed out. And they used this guy Shannon Miles, who he's an African American guy in a predominantly African American section of Houston, and he's not all the way there in the head. He's been declared incompetent for trial, and they're holding him in a Harris County jail, and his attorney's fighting for him to be like shipped off to the mental hospital because they're going to kill that dude.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is, I mean, I guess it relates to firearms rights because they were, number one, there was a great big call for gun control right in the wake of that. Like, oh my God, our office is getting shot on the streets, and it was did he pass a background check and all this kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, this isn't what it seems. I mean, this is something deeper, and this is some kind of very, very deep, stinky corruption. And the initial response by the government or the authority in this area, the Harris County Sheriff's Department, was to like brush this off onto the citizens. Like look, it's your gun rights that caused this. It's your anger with police violating their oath to the people that's causing this. You people complain too much. Just give up your guns and take it. So don't give up your guns. Buy more of them. Buy some ammo. Buy magazines.
Well, speaking of giving up your guns, we've got another ATF overreach story. EP Armory had to give up 3,800 of their polymer AR-15 80% lowers because the ATF has decided that 80%, which is the I guess it's the last step before the receiver pocket is drilled for the hammer and the fire control group, and then the different pins for the selector level. Those are considered legal. You don't have to have them serial numbered if they're for personal use and you don't intend on selling them. But because this company out of Bakersfield decides to make their receivers in different colors, the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Explain the different colors aren't referring to like a cosmetic feature. It's the different colors are areas indicating where the material is to be removed.
Right. It says the office for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Sacramento claimed that the different color polymer inside the center where that pocket goes was considered to be a separate piece, which was added after the lower was molded, and it was a firearm. So for those of you who may not be familiar with AR-15s, the lower receiver, which is basically, if you were to quote a certain senator, that the shoulder thing that goes up, that is part of the stock, which would go to the connect to the lower receiver. The lower receiver, which is typically the fire control group, the trigger housing, the magazine well, and the pistol grip, that is part of what makes up that weapon. Everything else is parts, but at an 80% lower, it has requirements to be milled out. So you actually have to take a jig, you have to have a drill press, you need to have
or some sort of milling machine or something. I mean, this is a completely arbitrary standard. And what does this make this an 82% lower?
Maybe 80.5.
Maybe. I mean, what is it?
You know?
I mean, this is really insane,
Yeah.
and it's just another one more step in trying to disarm you. And
Yeah. And so
you
this is,
have to ask, why are they pushing so hard to disarm you?
well,
And
you got to take a look at this. If you're the business owners of this company, the company's name is EP Armory. They were actually having federal agents purchase their lowers back in January of 2014, and they found that they had no serial numbers. Well, then hold on here. If you have an 80% lower that's not drilled, then you're
it
not
doesn't need to be
required.
certified.
Yeah, certainly. And then those are not firearms. They're just pieces of aluminum or polymer, and they're paperweights in effect until they've been drilled, until they've been fitted with, the appropriate milling device to get those holes cut out. So
I'll tell you what, I've seen some interesting things on both eBay and Amazon. People selling actual aluminum milled or cast 80% receivers, but they're selling them as artwork.
yeah, I saw that, but I went back and a day
They were
later they
gone.
were gone.
That's right. So yeah, that one didn't work for very long. I believe that they have. It's either some sort of algorithm, or they have people that actually search for this.
Well, I can
And
tell you that if they're anything like eBay, they have eBay employees out of Utah is where one of their call centers is, because I happened to receive such a call when I was attempting to sell a firearm component. I was trying to sell a rear sight made by Diamond Head USA, and I used the term AR-15 inside of my listing, and was actually told and called by the employee, called to my home phone number, and was called and told and said, "Hey, you have a listing. It has the word AR-15 in it. You can either A, remove the word AR-15, or we can remove your listing. Take your pick." And I said, wait a second. Why are we getting hung up about the word AR-15? And for them, it's all about mitigation of bad words. And this is where I think that we see it in our schools, we see it in a lot of different forms. But when it comes to selling something, you should kind of let the market decide what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And if you have,
well, I mean, that this goes along with the destruction of language. I mean, we're not too far from where everything's going to be a click, a whistle, and grunt, and like a smiley face.
yeah. But
I mean,
the
really.
interesting thing that I see about it, and that I come back to, is they didn't have a problem with having the listing for a rear sight aperture. That wasn't the issue at all. Their issue arose from AR-15 and the likelihood that there would be another school shooting where the word AR-15 would be associated with it, and eBay as a company, or at least their legal department, opined that they should not have that as something that can be attributed to their company. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, you sell knives on eBay, and there's quite a few knifings and killings with, by stabbing in this country, but yet we
I
don't.
wonder if they sell bleach and ammonia.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. And here's the thing. Okay, you got it. You've got a company in the Bay Area, which eBay is. They're headquartered out of Campbell, California, or San Jose, but realistically, for all intents and purposes, it's on the border of Campbell and San Jose. Um, you've got a company that's doing business worldwide, and if that's the thing that you think is going to wreck your business model, then maybe your business model is not as good as you think it is.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got a friend whose wife uses a website called Etsy, and that's kind of an artwork related site and crafts, stuff like that.
Yep, I know it.
And she did some paintings of some items, and one of the items she painted had a rebel flag on it, stars and bars. Right,
Oh, the war banner.
right. The great big General Lee flag, like everybody knows it. Her store was shut down for putting that on there.
Yeah, go figure. Because it's all about limiting the expression, as long as the expression does not agree with what they say.
Right. It's it's well, in the end, cultural Marxism is really what it is.
Yeah.
And the Bolsheviks never left. They are firmly entrenched, and they are about to take power.
Yeah. So, one of those things that we were talking about earlier when it comes to, governments going insolvent, the Norwegian military is close to bankruptcy, according to the firearm blog, and has ordered their personnel to turn in their pistols to save cash.
Are they going to sell them on eBay or something? What I mean,
Yeah.
what, how would turning in the pistol save a military, cash and prevent insolvency other than by selling them?
Well, the interesting thing is that obviously you think that, hey, maybe you're not going to be spending as much time on the range. They may turn around and do something called foreign international sales. Uh, you know, I can tell you that NATO having Norway as a allied nation or a member nation, they can train with whatever other Scandinavian nations they have relationships with, or they can train with Germany too. So it's not an issue.
So they can borrow the pistols from Germany.
Yeah, they can, because in a lot of
Well,
different.
what if Putin wakes up in a bad mood and decides he wants to take Norway? And could you wait like a couple of days to get a FedEx?
Well, Norway has dealt with invasions before.
Yeah, but they had pistols back then.
But I just find it being an interesting sign of the times. Whereas, gun control on all different levels is being pushed. It's weird for a Ministry of Defense to say, "Yeah, you're going to have to turn that over there, soldier."
That is really kind of unsettling. I don't think that's anywhere near the future of the United States, but that's really kind of an interesting, happening in the European firearms world. I mean, you kind of put that like the G36 rifle from HK not passing heat tests, and melting receivers, and melting uppers, and roasting magazines and whatever else it did. It's kind of looking grim for our NATO partners. And
yeah, well, something that's going to give
my Kalashnikov that takes NATO Stanag magazines in 5.56. Somebody out there makes a Kalashnikov that takes a standard NATO magazine is going to be a billionaire.
Well, in other news, the Ithaca Model 37 is back in production.
Really, that's kind of an interesting shotgun to have been back.
Yeah, so for a lot of people, folks that may have granddads, this was called the trench gun. So it's also called the old Three Fingers, or the Widowmaker.
Right. This is an exposed hammer shotgun. Is that correct?
No. This is a pump shotgun.
Yeah, it is a pump shotgun, but does it have an exposed hammer or not?
No.
No, that's that. I think that's the Winchester. That's got the exposed hammer. That's right.
Yeah. So this is.
Well, there's a big resurgence in that kind of retro firearms market, and I mean, the love for the 1911 has never died, even though a current tricked out 1911 does not look like something that was issued in 1943 by any means. But there are companies that specialize in making these retro-looking weapons. And to be honest, some of the, like, we'll just take for the 1911s, for example, some of the lower-end manufacturers, or what are considered lower-end manufacturers, such as maybe the Filipino company Rock Island or the Turkish company Tisas, they always make an entry spec or an entry GI spec model 1911. And that's usually just parkerized or blued, and it doesn't have fancy grips. It's usually got a wood or a plastic grip that's very, very simple, very, very rudimentary. There's no cup holders, there's no rails, there's no nothing on it. It's firearm, and those usually come in fairly well priced, and those being very true copies of a proven design, they work out well on their budget.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, for this Model 37, it's not going to be a cheap investment. You're looking at nearly $1,300. MSRP on this is $1,240. So to get a reproduction Vietnam era shotgun, it's got a 4+1 capacity. I think I'm going to have to pass.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I'll tell you what, for anybody out there who's kind of in the market for something that's vintage looking like that and has got a little bit of cash to throw around, check out OhioOrdnance.com. And there's some pretty nifty stuff on that website. And yeah, bring some cash or actually like a MasterCard or an American Express, because that stuff is all minimum $2,000 now. It's some pretty nice stuff. It's reproductions of BARs. It's reproductions of Browning machine guns and 50 cal. All these are semi-automatic, of course. They've all been reworked, and some of them are really, really nicely built. I mean, really interesting conversation pieces. I don't know if they've got necessarily the functionality that they had back when they were military weapons, being semi-auto, but you can be the only kid on your block with one.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that you got all these shotguns that realistically, aside from semi-automatics, break actions, and pumps, you haven't seen a whole lot of innovation in the shotgun realm, unless we're talking like in the aesthetics department, where the different high-end manufacturers.
You see the innovation in the shotgun realm in like these kind of bolt-up shotguns, like the Deltec KSG or the UTS or UTAS 12 or the UTS 15. Those are kind of an interesting design, but both those kind of come off of older designs that just never really were utilized. Yeah, I think there's only so much you can do with the shotgun. Really, what I'd like to see in the shotgun market is more emphasis placed on a budget without compromising the quality of the shotgun. Now, let's just take the Stevens for $1,300. If I had $1,300 and I was in the market for a shotgun, I would probably end up buying like a Mossberg 590 and then maybe like a Yildiz or a big box store double, and probably that would probably leave you with $400 left over
for a lot of ammo.
That's a lot of shells and a lot of different configurations. So yeah, it's not necessarily.
It's not a wise use of money, but I mean, hey, if you want to have that reproduction,
but if you got it, you can right ahead and let your right as
do it.
All that.
So another interesting story that comes out is that the Army is developing a dry lubricant to replace CLP. For anybody that's ever been in the military that's had to clean a AR-15 series or M4 series rifle, CLP is indispensable. Will help keep your bolt from fouling and continuing to fire. And this is not anything that's new, because some of the other companies that are marketing parts for the AR series, specifically like Anderson Arms or Anderson Manufacturing, they are doing dry lube bolts and bolts.
And some manufacturers have proprietary coatings that would be like similar to Tennefer or a Teflon coating or something that they claim is lubrication free.
Right. So, the interesting thing about it is that when somebody claims that their rifle doesn't require lubrication, as long as you're operating on that direct impingement system, at some point the carbon is going to foul up that bolt carrier group and that chamber so badly that you will not have the bolt and going into battery. You're going to have some stoppages. So I'd like to see what their engineers have been able to come up with to prevent that from happening, and certainly like to see a test on when that actually does foul and prevent it from firing.
And what kind of test do you think would be the most trying for that operating system? To me, I would personally think that it would be a sand test.
Yeah, certainly. Whether it's running it through its paces in a likely type of environment that you could see service in. So I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it go through water. I'd like to see it go through mud. I'd like to see it go through a whole lot of fine Iraqi moon dust and possibly some Afghan sand. Maybe some Syrian hospitals. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Syria's its own little mess right now, isn't it?
It is, but that's just the flavor of the month.
That's just one of our many messes out there. Why should we just take
Yeah.
it serious?
So
All right. So hey, I actually ended up getting a hold of something this week, and it's we've discussed like pocket pistols before, and I'm sort of an advocate of pocket pistols and having something that's small of a sufficient caliber, and I really kind of like that double tap Derringer. It's 9mm, and it's very thin and it's very flat. It is quite heavy, and I think really any kind of pocket pistol that's going to be reliable of a sufficient caliber is going to have a little bit of weight to it. But I found it for a pocket pistol to be a little bit, I guess, it printed a little too much for what I liked, and not only with it printing, but it's sort of just it stuck out. It gave the profile of, hey, that dude's got a gun in his pocket, and I was able to come across a product that is for sale, coincidentally, on Amazon and on eBay by a company called Leather by Dawn, and it's a leather shoot-through holster, and it gets around the NFA law against the the concealed holsters, because there is that NFA law that says that a holster that you can shoot through. I don't remember the exact regulation, but it does show that to be an NFA weapon, and the actual leather non-gun part of the setup would be considered a firearm, which is to me kind of on the crazy side. Well, this gets surrounded by, it does not cover the top of the weapon, which for the double tap really isn't any kind of loss, because, well, it's a break open Derringer, much like a double barrel shotgun or something. It's got a hinge point and it swings open, and being two shots, so it fits in the pocket well, and it totally changes the outline. It looks like I've got a wallet in that spot, and now it's capable to use in the back pocket, in the front pocket, wherever, and gives you a secondary pinky, or a secondary hole. It's got a hole for the trigger and then a hole for another finger, and I found that, strangely enough, it gives that little pistol a better grip and a better point. I find myself to not be shooting low with it anymore. I find myself to be right on target with it, and I think it's a quality product. It cost me $33, and I got it through Amazon.
Oh, there you
go. Don, if anybody's got something similar out there, he's got models for many different pocket pistols out there. This just happened to be one that really worked for me. I was finding that little tiny double tap did not fit in any other kind of holster. I had a couple of those, those cheap $9 nylon or kind of fake suede holsters that they sell at like the big box store. I had one of the smallest sizes of those, and while it fit well in the gun, and if you were to leave it on a counter or something like that, it was great. But if you're going to actually wear it, it didn't really, the holster was not of any kind of quality. It's a much better alternative to that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the very small pistols or the pocket pistols. Number one, I think that when it comes to things like the Bond Arms or the Derringers, there's been quite a few instances where those have failed to work as in the manner advertised.
Well, no, I let's watch out, because Bond Arms is not that company. Bond Arms makes quality stuff, and Bond Arms works. My biggest fault with Bond Arms is they're quite large. They're quite heavy firearms.
Well, and that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that those Bond Arms actually come in quite a few configurations. I think it was like
and
every caliber can be fitted. It's the removal of a hex nut and reaffixing a different barrel.
Yeah, I mean they've got a 4570 barrel. I mean you go ahead and shoot a 4570 Derringer. You're the tough guy, not me.
Yeah.
But let's not impugn Bond Darn by any means. They make a quality product, and undoubtedly they charge for a quality product because you're not getting the Bond Darn Derringer for any less than $400. Now, the Derringers that do have a kind of a poor reputation, like the Davis Derringers, the Cobra Derringers out of Utah. Now, they have a lifetime warranty, and if you have one of those Derringers and send it back to them, follow all their rules, you will have it serviced. It's not 100% reliable straight out of the box. I've personally had a Cobra Derringer, and it did not work. And now while they did offer to honor their warranty and fix it for me, it would have been like a 9-week wait, and it just didn't work out. I ended up selling it.
Well, you talked about the 4570 as a pretty staunch round.
That is stout, yeah, dude. That's a. I just can just barely imagine the fireball coming out like a 2 or a 3-inch barrel on one of those little Derringers.
Right, and typically you're going to find that 4570 in a lever gun.
Right, and to put that in a little tiny pocket pistol, boy, that's a stretch, man.
That would be a hand cannon. So speaking of...
Actually, I would say if you needed something like that, you should move.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the 4570, Henry, proudly American company. It's made in the USA or not made at all, according to their founder. They are coming out with an all-weather lever-action rifle. It's interesting because Henry is known for the Golden Boy and the Big Boy and many manner of cowboy action, lever action rifles. They're coming out with it's basically a little bit of polymer on the stock and case hardened steel. So it's going to be offered in the 3030 and the 4570.
I think that's really nice. I think a polymer stock 3030 would be quite useful. I've got no problem with that. I don't necessarily think it needs rails or anything like that, but a polymer stock 30 would be.
Looking at it, it has the same open sights. The 3030 model is going to be 4+1 capacity, and so you got a total of 5 rounds, and then it's going to weigh 7 pounds. The 4570 is going to have 4 rounds in the magazine, and then it also weighs about 7 pounds. So you're looking at
this is a traditional stock lever action. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the 3030, it's the same traditional profile for the stock. The 4570 looks more like a traditional bolt action rifle stock.
Okay, so there's no like 6-piece collapsible stock like an AR-15.
No. And
okay, now
so what you're looking at is it looks like stainless.
Mossberg has made a lever action shotgun that has rails. It has a quad rail around it, and it has a collapsible stock.
Yeah.
And I believe if you're interested in that, you can Google search Mossberg lever atrocity, and it will come up. It's truly an ugly rifle. It was manufactured right about the time of the change from the zombie craze to the tactical craze.
Well, and this is one thing that I think that a lot of people when they get brought up hunting, maybe in the Midwest or hunting on a farm somewhere, usually a 30-30 is one of the first rifles that they ever get a chance to shoulder, and so the 30-30 holds quite a bit of nostalgia for a large portion of the shooting population of America. It's widely acclaimed to be probably the most prolific deer killing rifle in the United States.
Well, it is quite a low caliber.
Certainly.
It's on par with the 7.62 by 39. Its ballistics are almost the exact same.
Exactly. So this may be a chance to kind of give the 3030 an updated look, give it a little bit more utilitarian, or I should say a little bit more utility, because when you have those Winchester Model 94s or the JM Marlins, you got the nice wood stock, and you don't want to tend to take those out in bad weather. Well, for those of us that hunt, and maybe some of us more dedicated shooters, weather is not a stopping factor for us.
I agree. I think a polymer stock lever action rifle is really nice. I mean, as long as it's not tacticaled out.
No,
Yeah,
no,
I
and
think
this,
that's
like I said, this is just got the rear buckhorn sight and the the front bead. So you're getting pretty much the same style in a 30-30. You just got polymer where you would have wood, and
well. I mean, it's can't move to graduate
yeah,
plastics are the future, and we can see that in a lot of products. I mean, not only firearm parts, like let's the most ubiquitous of all would be block and it's polymer frame, but there's plenty of like home projects that people can get involved in on really on a budget friendly level. I mean, there's Kydex, and Kydex has a lot of utility, and it's fairly easy to work with. I mean, it's a minimal investment for tools. Many of the tools that are used for Kydex, many people already have. I think the most significant investment in a tool would be a heat gun, and you can get that at House of Chinese Tools for like less than $30.
yeah,
You know, some of the accessories for Kydex, like Chicago screws or buckles or things like that, can be pricey. But I mean, there's a lot of options in Kydex, and you start combining Kydex with paracord, and you've really got some interesting options there. I think that's something to investigate. I don't know. I kind of like single action revolvers, and I've got a cowboy style holster for it, okay, and all that. But I really like it. Whatever. This is America, and I live in Texas. Screw you. I can have a cowboy gun. And the drop leg holster Western style that I've got is kind of a lower quality holster. It's not necessarily solid leather, and it's the best made in Vietnam or Mexico or some place like that holster I could get at a gun show for like $60.
yeah.
And I was thinking about that, and I thought, I bet you I could probably make like a similar setup with Kydex and like nylon built or something like that.
No, you don't want to be giving away your trade secrets because you don't want to run afoul of the international
Not
trafficking in arms.
that's right. Yeah. Well, what's that regulation on how to stop holsters from getting into the hands of Al Qaeda?
There you go. Yeah.
Just monitoring holster building facilities.
Well, speaking of getting into Al Qaeda, let's go over the 4 rules of firearm safety.
Rule number 1: never give a gun to a jihadi. All right. Rule number 2: don't give guns to Mexican cartel members.
Damn, you're like cutting out the middlemen.
That's right. There's no profit in the 4 rules of safety that way. All right. First rule is every firearm is loaded until you physically verify it is not loaded. Rule number 2 is keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction at all times. Rule number 3: know what your target is and know what's beyond your target at all times. Rule number 4: the most important rule: no negligence happens without this rule being violated. Keep your booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah, we had we had that mysterious white stuff falling from the sky this week, and
I prefer to call that Yankee terrorism.
yeah, the funny thing is that every time I think, hey, I've got a 4-day weekend coming up. I might be able to get some range time. I'm willing to go out to the range when it's 40 degrees or 35 degrees if it's clear. But when we have that stuff falling from the snow and it's in the national forest and, the roads aren't exactly great to get up there, I'm thinking it's not such a good idea to go.
You could probably buy a snowmobile.
I could. I probably could. It would take
finance.
Yeah, I was going to say it would take some financing, and I'm not really into doing that right now.
Well, you know what? Just as an aside, you could probably finance a snowmobile at about $40,000 quicker than you could finance a house at $40,000.
You probably could. So the bad
And
thing
I think that's kind of crazy.
And you could probably get it for no money down and probably 10% interest too.
That's right. There's no principal in it, and insurance tax and all that on on the snowmobile. There's no monthly installment and escrow payment on that.
Yeah. So, for folks that are interested, be on the lookout. There's quite a few deals out there. A lot of the post SHOT Show deals are coming out. We talked a little bit about it last week. I received that mailer from one of the companies that I've subscribed to their newsletter. Lower receivers that are stripped for $39. That's pretty good. Some range ammo in the 300 blackout category for $10 for 20 rounds. You got to go look and take advantage of that stuff.
Well, I'll tell you, I think in the aftermath of Scalia's passing, there was maybe a little mini rush that's going on again right now, because I know TN Arms Co. sold out of 15 lowers. Palmetto State has got certain lowers that they're sold out of, and I think there's a definite bit of unease and angst among firearms owners, especially firearms owners who pay attention to the political process and how that will affect your rights. I think there's a little bit on.
The way I look at it, and the passing of Scalia has just reminded me that once again, we all have a shelf life. It brings me to the point that those guys who show up at the big box stores and the Walmarts that buy out their stock in minutes. Eventually those guys are going to pass away too, and they're going to be left. They're going to leave behind a widow who has absolutely no idea what to do with all this ammunition. So at some point,
40,000 rounds of 20.
Yeah, at some point the estate sale might have a comment like lots of man stuff available.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that and in looking at maybe picking up this Smith & Wesson M&P 1522, I'm starting to take a look and see where I can come across some round nose ammunition for 22s. And I'm seeing there's a lot of the stuff that's starting to come back in is the Remington Thunderbolt, and there's an offer on.
See, but I don't like Thunderbolt. I think Thunderbolt is messy. It's an exposed lead bullet.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I mean, I saw an ad for Federal.
I think it's a dirty firing round, and I don't think it's necessarily the most reliable of the 22.
Yeah, but you know what? That's something a little brake cleaner can't fix, right?
I don't know. I don't think brake cleaner can fix that up. I mean, I don't. I think for that rifle, I think you're probably going to have to go with probably a little bit better ammunition.
Yeah.
Probably at least something that's got a plated bullet.
So you're talking something with copper over the top.
Yeah. Not necessarily like the Remington Golden Bullet, which comes in that that great big bucket.
Right.
And it's got a golden bullet, but it's kind of like a powder that's been sintered onto the lead, and it's not a durable coating. And once again, with just like Thunderbolt, start handling a bunch of golden bullet, and it's all over your fingers after a while. Probably like C-3PO fingers.
Yeah. So if you had the chance and you had the 22 long rifle versus a rifle that was chambered in 22 mag, would you still want to shoot the 22 long rifle, or would you opt for the 22 mag?
Well, just off straight out, I'd say 22 long rifle, but that's my own personal preference. I find 22 long rifle, well, number one, a lot simpler to find, a lot more cost effective to shoot. 22 mag ends up costing almost about the same as 9mm.
Yeah. Well, hey,
the music coming in.
That's it. I want to say thanks to Jules. Thanks to all our listeners. Michael, it's good to hear you again.
I think it was wonderful to speak with you. Everybody, thank you for listening. UCY.TV. Jules, you're a saint. Thank you for giving us this gift, this platform to spout our spew. Everybody, do what the song says.
Fight good, fight good.